Hello everybody, welcome to the United Stands. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United news as Mainoo moves closer to a Napoli deal. Are United fans basically using Mainoo as a way to be manager FC? And also Adam Wharton price is set. Is it ridiculous? Is it too much? Well, lots to get into. Make sure you smash a like on the video. Lovely background again. But effectively, Di Marzio in Italy will have very good connections with Italian football. And he is saying that Mainoo has given his priority to Napoli. It's now about whether Manchester United will open the doors to a deal with Napoli this January transfer window. They may have to work around their sort of financial situation, but ultimately this is where Mainoo wants to go. And we've heard this from Romano. We've heard it from lots of people over the last few months. So can it happen for Manchester United? I think the answer is it does need to happen. But one of the things I wanted to get into straight away, because I've seen a lot of it from maybe some of you as well, is that I think there's this misconception around what some of us are not happy about with Mainoo leaving Manchester United. I've seen all sorts of stuff. I've seen people, I saw a clip today about how Mainoo shouldn't be playing ahead of Casemiro. This is a World Cup winner, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, hold on a minute. I've also seen people taking a pop at people like myself, but more importantly, some of the ex-players who are saying, you know, the standards aren't good enough and saying it needs to stop. It doesn't need to stop. People upholding their own personal standards doesn't need to stop if they're justifying it with reasoned debate. And I think we are seeing that. But I think what we're seeing with Mainoo, and I'll throw a different spanner in the works, is that it seems to me, I mean, look, I'm not hammering him out. Not hammer him out anyway, but it seems to me if you hammer him in, there are certain people who use the Mainoo situation to justify the existence of being Mainoo in. What I mean by that is they start stumbling around, which I nearly did there. They start stumbling around about things like, well, Casemiro should be playing ahead of him. Casemiro's lean. Casemiro's a mean machine. Casemiro's won the World Cup. Casemiro's a superstar. And I'm like, hold on a minute. We don't want Casemiro to get dropped for Mainoo. I don't remember that happening. I don't remember that conversation. In fact, our manager, the manager you're backing on this, has simply said that Mainoo is playing, you know, Mainoo would play in Bruno's position. So it's amazing what people try to twist and turn. I was talking like that guy out of Bugs Bunny then, Twy. It's amazing what people try to twist and turn to fit an argument that actually we're not having. I think the conversation we're having is, why is Mainoo being allowed to leave Manchester United? Because we've got to trust the manager. But I look at like Adam Wharton, the Guardian are saying this morning, £80 million for Wharton. I look at that and I sort of go, £80 million for Wharton? Is he, you know, what would we get for Mainoo? And I know there's a price on that, but let's say we got 40 for Mainoo. So we sell Mainoo for 40 to spend another 40 to bring Wharton in. What's the difference between Wharton and Mainoo, apart from the fact he's playing regularly for Crystal Palace? And if Mainoo was at Crystal Palace, he'd be playing regularly for Crystal Palace. That's the problem. I think that's the problem many of us have, is what we're trusting a manager, right? We're trusting a manager, that's fine. I don't want this manager to get sacked till the end of the season. I want him to do better, but I don't want him to get sacked. I think it's pointless. But if we get it wrong, we're losing a player that really, I'm not saying he should be starting every week, but nobody can argue that he should have been given more opportunities. You can't justify not picking Mainoo because Casemiro and Bruno have played well every week. They haven't. The argument is, why is he not being prioritised? Why is he not being given minutes? Why is he not part of the plans of a manager and never has been? And yet we've seen with our own eyes that there's a player there that's very talented. So why are we ignoring that? Why are we not looking at that? Why? What is that for? So yes, we've got to trust the manager. I understand some people are doing that, but what if you don't? What if you think that's a problem? What if you think that's an issue? Why is that a bad thing? And why are some people turning it into Mainoo's dog shit, get rid of Mainoo, this, that and the other? It's a whole lot bigger than that. And it's not about dropping Casemiro. I don't know what that's all about. It's about moving Bruno into a 10 and giving Mainoo an opportunity next to Casemiro. And we're not seeing that. We're never seeing that. So why isn't that happening? What is it? What's the issue? And why would we trust the manager exclusively on that one? So, you know, put that in your bread and smoke it pipe, because I do think it's a relevant point. And I think, you know, we sort of are wandering down this road now that if you are sort of setting standards and saying, I want to see this, this and this, it needs to stop. We just need to get behind the manager. Oh yeah, that worked. That worked well with Oli, didn't it? That worked well with Ten Hag. That worked well with Jose. That worked well with Rangnick. We just need to trust the owners and get behind the manager. It literally hasn't worked for 10 years. So actually, I think we need to ask questions. And sometimes those questions aren't to sack the manager. They're sort of like going, what's the vision? What's going on? Where's the performance? And I do look at Wharton, and I do think he's an interesting signing, but at £80 million, got a 20-year-old there that is actually at our football club. and we're forcing him out the door. And I think a lot of people are sort of looking at it and going, why? Why is that? What is this actually about? What is it he's lacking? Why is he not getting the minutes? Why was he getting the minutes 18 months ago? It's not like your midfield's doing particularly well, and we're sort of forcing him out the door. And I think, I can't just do that on trust. I can't just do that on trust. You can't just do that on trust. You can't just do that on vibes. You've got to have a reason for it. And the midfield that we've got isn't good enough. So look, as I said before, the club need to step up, because if he's prioritising a move to Napoli, that's very, very sad. But realistically, you need to move him very, very quickly, and you need to bring a replacement in, because the conversation just keeps going back to the same old thing, whether this should be happening or whether it shouldn't be happening. And my feeling is that I think it's starting to become a bit about Mainoo versus the manager. It is starting to come a little bit about that. Like I said, we're starting to see more and more strange takes about, nobody. I've heard hardly anybody say that Mainoo should be, Casemiro should be dropped for Mainoo. I've heard a lot of people saying, why is Mainoo not getting more minutes? Why is he not coming on in games more often? It's not like the midfield's doing very well. Why not put Bruno into number 10 and give Mainoo more minutes? We're not prioritising those minutes. And that's the question I would have for Amrim, is like, what is it that you are clearly not liking about Mainoo, because you won't use him at all? But as I said, in relation to the news, I just think this needs to happen, because I think it's almost becoming misconstrued and used as it's almost like I'm sure some of us are in this situation. You almost feel like, if you like Mainoo and you believe he should be used more, and you believe that we're wasting a talent, you're now almost being tarred with the brush of being negative and toxic, and you've just got to trust the manager. And I'm like, but I'm not saying sack the manager. I'm just very, very confused. We're not playing well. We're very results driven. I can't see what the vision is. There's a player that's going to leave. We saw Garnacho go in the summer because he fell out with the manager. I mean, I backed the manager on that one, and I still do. But I'm like, on a very basic level, Garnacho would be a player that's for the future, and we've let him go as well. So I'm sort of like looking at it and I'm going, I need to see a little bit more. I need to see a little bit more around this, because I want to see the vision, but I also do not want to see the fan base falling into this trap of making it about, well, I think Mainoo's shit because I back the manager. And I think that's really unfair, really, really unfair. And I think that, as I said, Crystal Palace, £80 million for Wharton. Nottingham Forest, £80 million for Anderson. Belabor, £60 million. Are they better than Mainoo? Are they? I mean, I sort of was looking at the Liverpool game in brief this morning. He didn't play very well. He didn't play very well again. Regardless of minutes, he didn't play very well. So I just think it's a big topic. I do think it's a big topic. And I think it needs to, the topic needs to be avoided in the sense of, well, he's just shit. He's just slow. He's this, that, and the other. He's not been given opportunities. It's not about dropping Casemiro. It's not even about dropping Bruno. It's about, why is a 20-year-old who 18 months ago was a really, really exciting player is now not an exciting player for this manager, apart from we just need to trust this manager. And I think that's a hard thing to do. And that's not being negative. And I find it hilarious that people say, oh, you just need to get behind the manager and support him on this. Well, we are, because we're turning up and we're watching games and we love Manchester United. But it doesn't mean that we can't pose questions about why this isn't happening. And look, you look at Liverpool yesterday, Salah's on the bench, he's on after 20 minutes. He's fell out with the club, but it's sorted. We move on for the betterment of Liverpool. Whereas with Manchester United, it's sort of like, the resolvement needs to be moving him on, because we can't continue with this for another 5 months. But I do think it's being, misinterpreted. I don't think there's a problem saying this manager is misusing Kobbie Mainoo and Kobbie Mainoo needs to be allowed to go. And I don't think there's a problem with demanding the club that do that. But I don't think it's a good argument going, he's shit. Casemiro and Bruno should be picking. It's an opinion, but I don't think it's a very valid one in my opinion. And it's not about that. I think most people who are frustrated about Mainoo's situation with their own eyes have seen a player that's very talented and gone, he's going to be a good player for us for the future. But we're now being told he's shit. And it's sort of like, no, but I did see him for 8 months at 18 or 19 look really good, and you're now telling me he's not. And then we're getting mixed messages from the manager saying he's working really hard in training and he deserves to start, and then he doesn't start him. So, I mean, he might just be doing that to keep his price up. But, you know, if he wants Napoli, let him go. But let's not pretend that we're letting go of a shit player, because I'll never buy into that. And I don't understand it. Anyway, get your comments in. Make sure you smash a like and subscribe. I shall speak to you on the next one. Take care.